Hi all. I thought I'd quickly look at a game at chessgames.com, the consultation game, which engines are allowed. It's an example of a very modern format in the evolution of the game, where to participate in the team discussions, if you haven't got good hardware and Ribka, then there's no point. You wouldn't be able to follow the lines. Anyway, I just got back into the latest position. So this is the game, and the team was playing black, so a very solid Slav defence, semi-Slav, with this solid pawn triangle. They took on c4, but it wasn't with the intention. I mean, the pawn can't be kept anyway. So basically, this is the position coming up, reached. But what I want to consider is a move which the team made, which at the time the horizon effect of the engines might have considered it to be a really good move. This h5. And long term it is weakening g5. But let's go back to what Philidor said: the pawns are the soul of chess. Now, could that statement have been so well ahead of his time, even 200 years ahead of his time, that engines in the future were still held back by this horizon effect in engines? So why is g5 weak? It's not apparently weak here at depth 15 of Ribka. But later on, in the current position now, it echoes the weakness of g5 in quite a spectacular way. So it does sort of highlight, Philidor with his pawn structure, quotation, it's like something out of Doctor Who. It was like well into the future. He's like highlighting this weakness of engines in terms of the horizon effect. So I thought this is a fascinating angle to look at. Because he laid really the foundations for a lot of modern, positional play, Philidor. He was carried on by Steinitz. So in this game, this now occurred. So a few moves down the line, we're looking at this g5 weakness in particular, and we reach this position where the esteemed grandmaster opponent, correspondence grandmaster opponent Umansky, who's very creative and dynamic in the Catalan, he plays this rook a3. And so the game continued. Bishop f5, knight e3. So the knights didn't come off immediately. Bishop e4. Now bishop c5. The queen moved back to e8. Now, finally, a knight exchange. And now this move by Umansky, knight g5. And I was looking at this position with Ribka just to try and get back into the game. And the first thing to notice is bishop takes g2. White doesn't play king takes g2, but actually interposes queen c2 to threaten, mate on h7. So this forces like two main, there's three main moves. Sorry, two main moves: bishop e4 or g6. And let's look at bishop e4. So bishop e4. Now knight takes, and there's two moves Ribka at a shallow depth looks at: b6 and queen e5. But let's have a look at queen e5, because the threat now is potentially h4. h4 to try and wrench open this diagonal. So if white is forced to play h4 to restrain that pawn, but now look at this g5, this echoing of the g5 weakness. Now white is actually threatening knight g5, trying to get in on h7. Now you might consider, what if like knight f6 here? Well, knight f6 takes, and now rook b3. Apparently this is better for white at a shallow depth, but there might actually be better moves. I'm not sure, 100% sure here. Maybe rook e3 here. But anyway, the team was looking at f6, but now there's this like a spectacular drawing resource available to Umansky here, and I was looking at knight c3. I was thinking KB TC analysis was somehow a bit optimistic, because he wasn't mentioning knight c3. But there's a spectacular idea of knight c3 where black ends up being slightly better. Let's have a quick look at that. Knight b4, because the horizon effect initially thought white was winning this because of check, and now queen f7 with the idea of bishop f8. But the piece dynamism is such here that in this position, after knight b4, after knight a6, bishop f8 is not possible, because rook takes, queen takes, and now bishop b6 I think this is right, and black's better. No, let's go back. Sorry. Knight b4 check. Rook c8 here. Rook c8 is the key move. No, keeping the knight on b4. Now bishop f8 taking, and now bishop b6, and all of a sudden, white's under fire. So that's fine, and it's got nothing to do with the weakness of g5. But let's go back, and in this position, so that's why the awkward-looking move Rook f3 probably has to be played by Umansky. And now we see this idea of the g5 weakness being exploited with knight g5, and this virtually forces a spectacular draw by perpetual check. Fg queen g6, and there's a threat now of queen f7 and queen h5, just perpetual check. So black apparently has to play like knight f4. That's one of the critical moves. Rook d8 as well to be considered, but that's perpetual. So knight f4, and now we just get this kind of perpetual with check and bishop d4 now. And bishop d4 basically forces black to defend g7, and now we have just perpetual like this with queen c8. But anyway, the point I wanted to make is this impact of Philidor's idea that the pawns are the soul of chess. Even in this modern game we're playing in 2009 with the whole team armed with Rybka, this super 8-core, 16-core, I don't know, people with weird nicknames, random visitor, KVTC, people like analysing day and night. It's amazing that a move like h5 was played, and so does this show that we don't really respect the previous generations, or we don't arrange things such that we do respect them? I mean, I said that perhaps pawn moves in particular should be given to a strategic sub-team, to look at the long-term implications of h5. Because really, if the pawn had remained there, g5 wouldn't have been such an issue later. I mean, maybe, it's just, you could argue it's all brute force, and that pawn structure isn't, a big deal. But here, it just seems if white's armed to the teeth with engines as well, then the difference is going to be a strategic difference potentially. So here it seems that the g5 square, because of the earlier decision, was weakened, and unfortunately the whole team is now being held up again to a draw by a single person. So I don't know. What do you think about this? Do you think pawn considerations should be given high priority, even if you are armed to the teeth with engines in a big consultation match where anything goes? Please leave any comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.